Welcome to Rebel Chaser. My name is Gail, and I have a video for you from Judge Graham in Texas. And he has got a mom who, she's quite religious. And I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll let you guys watch, and then I'll talk to you at the end.
Okay, then I will call cause number 77653C in the interest of the Orsanya child. We're here on an adversary hearing. Ms. Wildman is with us for the department. Mr. Ingram's with us representing the child. Mr. Saint is with us representing the mother, Miss Amati, and Joel Jackson represents the father, Mr. Orsanya. However, he's out with an illness, so Miss Gomez is covering for him. Ms. Gomez, thank you for doing that. All right. I have no one else in the waiting room, so I guess we are ready to proceed. Ms. Wildman, your first witness.
The department would call David Anderson.
Okay. Mr. Anderson, if you'd raise your right hand, please. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
And Mr. Anderson, are you familiar with a child by the name of Journey or Sanya?
I am.
And how old is Journey?
Journey is 5 years old.
And about when did you first become familiar with Journey and her family?
We became involved with the family on October 27th.
And so who was Journey primarily living with at that time?
When I made contact with the child, she was with the father.
Okay. And are the parents married?
No.
And so are they living separately?
Yes.
And at that time, I assume there was some sort of custody agreement where both of them had access to Journey?
Correct.
And so what was the nature of the intake that you became involved in?
So the report that we received was that the mother had untreated mental health that resulted in her being involuntarily committed at Oceans Behavioral Health, and that there were significant concerns that she would not remain compliant after discharge, and that she would continue to have mental health problems.
Now, what were some of the issues with those untreated mental health concerns?
So
I'm going to object to hearsay and also stating facts not in evidence. There was a report of untreated mental health concerns. They certainly haven't provided any evidence.
I didn't hear your objection.
I'm sorry, Judge. I'm objecting to hearsay. He's talking about concern and stating facts not in evidence. There's no evidence.
Right. Sustained.
All right, well, we can lay a little bit of more foundation for that. So, Mr. Anderson, did you begin investigating those reports?
I did.
And in the process of that investigation, did you talk with the parents?
I did.
Did you talk to other family members?
I did.
Now, specifically, when did you first make contact with Miss Amati?
I first made contact with her on November 4th.
And when you spoke to her, did you talk to her about the concerns that had been raised in these intake reports?
Yeah, I attempted to. And I apologize. It was November 7th that I made initial face-to-face with her.
That's right. And was she able to, where did you meet with her?
At Oceans in Amarillo.
So you were able to confirm that she was at Oceans?
Yes.
And when you had spoken to her, what was her demeanor?
She was very standoffish and refused to complete an interview, and as well as sign the notification of rights form.
And what did she say specifically about the mental health treatment that she was getting?
At that time, that she said that she had no mental health concerns. She had no interest in talking to me, and the conversation was concluded.
Did you later have an opportunity to talk with her a little bit more in depth?
Yes, after leaving Oceans, a couple hours later, she called me and stated that she did not feel comfortable talking to other people. That she was not experiencing any type of mental health concern, and that she was essentially being held against her will at Oceans.
Did you talk with her specifically about concerns that had been made about some of the statements she had made?
Yes, I did.
And what sort of statements was she, I guess, talking about?
When I asked her regarding the incident which prompted her involuntary committal to Oceans, she said that she was involved in a car accident and that she was fearful that she was dying, and so she was rebuking and that they should have taken her to the emergency room instead of the mental hospital.
Okay.
When I asked her about the incident at work, she stated that she was praying aggressively and the people around her just weren't used to it, so they were scared.
So she didn't deny any of the incidents that you were told about on intake.
No.
And so specifically, I guess, can you provide a little bit more context on the incidents that you were asking her about specifically?
So I didn't discuss those concerns with her until my second meeting with her.
Okay.
The meeting on the phone was kind of truncated.
Okay.
On the second meeting, she said that at her work, she's a very religious person. She was praying aggressively. The people at her work weren't used to that. They didn't know how to react to it, and it was just it scared them. She said that as far as the car accident goes, that yes, she has a history of panic attacks, and that she was having a negative response basically to the car accident, that she felt that her life was in danger and that she was, and that, that's her religion was being expressed.
Okay. And so when you talk to her a little bit more about, I guess, the mental health side of things, what was her response to continuing treatment?
She stated that she did not receive any outpatient referrals from Oceans. She did not receive any discharge paperwork that had any type of referrals on it. When asked who she was planning on continuing to get her mental health treatment from, she stated her counselor. I clarified that a counselor can't really prescribe mental health medication, so how was she planning to continue her medication? At which point she said that she would be getting it through her PCP, her primary care physician. And I requested from her at that point that she complete a psychiatric evaluation.
Now, did you talk to her about whether or not she was prescribed any medication when she was at Oceans?
She did say that she was prescribed at when she was at Oceans and being discharged.
Okay. And did you ask her why they would have done that if she didn't have any issues?
She felt that they were not treating her appropriately, and that they were basically essentially making things up.
Now, did she ever show you any proof that she did a psychological evaluation?
So she was referred to TPC. When I contacted TPC, they had stated that they had made multiple attempts to face with her. They had not been provided a phone number, so the caseworker had actually gone out and knocked on her door to make attempts. They had not been able to reach her at that point in time. So I reached back.
I'm sorry, what? I can't hear you.
Just say,
Sustain.
Okay, well, has Miss Amati given you any proof that she had attempted to make that TPC referral or do an evaluation through them?
Yes. Once I had made contact with Kia again to let her know that TPC was trying to contact her, that she had an appointment the next morning, she went down to TPC the next day and spoke with the intake caseworker.
Okay. And was has Kia or Miss Amati been receptive to following any of those recommendations or following through with TPC?
My understanding is that she was referred a psychological evaluation and a psychiatrist to speak to. That she was
I
referred
object to the extent that this is calling for hearsay.
And without saying what their recommendation was, has Miss Amati given you any proof that she's followed through with any of the TPC recommendations?
No.
Now, shortly after they attempted to do that, did you speak with Miss Amati again?
Yes, she called me shortly after the TPC.
Okay. And what did you try to come up with any sort of safety plan or anything to avoid having to remove Journey from Miss Amati's custody?
Yes, I requested that she agree to a safety plan with either supervised contact or the child reside with the father temporarily. When I made contact at her residence, notifying her about the TPC appointment, as well as 2 times subsequent to that.
And so what was her, I guess, response to those attempts to put a safety plan in place?
Flat refusal.
And did you talk to her at all about following up at all on aftercare from Oceans or anything like that?
I had asked her if she had been in contact with Oceans. She said no. And then there was no follow-up appointment that I'm aware of with TPC after the initial intake.
Now, since the removal, what kind of contact have you had with Miss Amati?
The only contact I've had was the notice of removal when she came into the office and completed paperwork.
And what was that conversation like?
It was very aggressive. She basically felt that I was biased in my removal, and that I was, in her words, prejudiced against her. That we had no cause to remove the child because she had no mental health issues, that she had, gone to her TPC appointment, and that she had intent to remain compliant with her medication. However, during the course of the conversation, she also admitted that she was no longer taking her medication.
Did she say anything about what her plan was regarding medication?
No.
Did she say that she was going to try to get on a different medication or that she would resume that medication?
My impression is that she was waiting until the psychological evaluation was completed, and then follow the referral, hopefully.
Did you specifically ask her, though, if she had consulted with anybody up to that point about the medication?
No, I don't recall her saying that there was no physician that told her, in order to stop taking it. She stated that it was causing a muscle spasm, and so she just stopped taking it.
Okay. And so from your understanding, she did not consult with anybody before stopping that medication.
Correct.
All right. Now, what are the concerns about the danger to Journey's physical health and safety?
The concerns that the department has is that she has demonstrated a track record of not being compliant with medication. Prior to our case, she had admitted that she had not continued her anxiety medication. That multiple mental health professionals had expressed concerns that she had not or would not be continuing her medication.
Objection,
Uh,
hearsay.
Sustained.
and
Well,
there's
and
sorry,
let's clarify, she had, since that one of the concerns is that regardless of what the mental health people may have said, that she had been required to get mental health treatment, correct?
correct.
And she had not followed up on her aftercare instructions, correct?
Correct.
Have you had a chance to talk with Mr. Orsanya about this case?
I have.
And had he expressed concerns?
He had.
What kind of concerns had he expressed?
Objection, hearsay.
And
Overruled. He's a party.
He could express the same concerns on the intake, that there were concerns that she would not be compliant and that she was minimizing her mental health concerns and not willingly or not being willing to address them.
did he have concerns about Journey's safety if she remained with Miss Amati?
He did.
And where is Journey currently placed?
Journey is currently placed with the father.
So, talking about kind of our attempts at avoiding removal, I mean, what efforts were made to avoid removing Journey from Miss Amati's home?
So the attempts were to get her to engage with mental health facilities in order to stabilize her mental health. Multiple requests to enact a safety plan in absence of supervision to place with the father. And then child was subsequently placed in a kinship placement with the father to prevent her being placed into the foster system.
Okay, and so really, as far as removing from Miss Amati, I mean, she had the option to agree to supervision, and Journey could have stayed in her home, correct?
Yes.
And as far as placing with the father, is that the least restrictive option that we have at this point?
Yes.
And is Miss Amati has a temporary visitation order been established at this point?
Yes.
And so at this point, do you believe, I guess at the time of the removal, do you believe that there was an immediate danger and an urgent need to protect and remove the child?
I do.
And do you believe that at the time of the removal, there was no time consistent with those circumstances for us to have this adversary before that?
I do.
And at this point, is the recommendation of the department going to be joint managing conservatorship with David Orisanya,
Yes.
and then having Miss Amati as a temporary possessory conservator?
Correct.
And as far as attempts to reunify since the removal, is placing with the father an attempt to try and reunify the family?
Yes.
And is setting up that visitation with Miss Amati an attempt to reunify the family?
Yes.
And having JMC with the family, with the father, and having Miss Amati work services, are those going to be future efforts that the department intends to take?
Yes.
Pass the witness, Judge.
All right. Mr. Anderson, I don't believe you were asked, but I take it from your testimony, you're a CPS investigator, correct?
I am, Your Honor.
Okay. All right. Now, I thought I heard you testify that the safety plan that Miss Amati refused was to temporarily place the child with the father. Is that correct?
That I had asked her to be supervised initially. And when she refused, I offered the child to reside with the father as an alternative to the safety plan, if she was unwilling to do that, and she refused both.
Okay. Who was going to supervise her? Was it going to be father?
That would be a conversation that her and I would have if she was willing to do that so that I could run background checks on potential people that she would be willing to allow supervise.
Okay, so she cut it off before you got to talk about who would supervise. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right then, Mr. Saint, do you have questions? You're muted.
Sorry, I guess this will work better. Can you hear me okay, Mr. Anderson?
I can, sir.
Okay, it sounds like a lot of the concerns deal with her time at Oceans and what CPS got, or information CPS acquired from Oceans. Is that fair to say?
No, most of the concerns I have were obtained after her Oceans stay.
Okay. So most of your concerns were things that happened after she was at Oceans.
Correct.
Okay. And she went to Oceans after the accident. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So remind me then, the concerns after Oceans, was that based on your conversations with her?
It was based off of the police reports, based off of conversations with the case manager at TPC, the case manager at Oceans, as well as her refusal to be compliant or to engage with the department.
Okay. And when you say compliant, at least part of that, you're talking about compliant with Oceans. Is that correct? Their recommendations?
When I said that, I meant actually compliant with the department, compliant with, the request of the department to complete the interview process, to, do a safety plan, to, do that. Her refusal was, and her repeatedly stating that she didn't have any mental health concerns, caused significant concerns for their, ongoing risk to the child.
How long have you been working for CPS?
2 years.
Okay. In that time, have you had any cases that involved Oceans or another mental health facility?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of anybody complaining that they were being kept in one of those facilities just until their insurance ran out?
To me personally, no, but I imagine that I can see how that would be a thing.
Let's not speculate. Just testify to what you know, Mr. Anderson.
Yes, sir.
Now, if you testified that she said that she did not feel like Oceans was treating her properly. Is that correct?
Correct.
So if she felt like they were giving her bad treatment, it wouldn't be shocking that she wouldn't follow their recommendations, would it?
I can't speak to whether or not she'd be willing to do that solely based on that.
Okay. But if somebody didn't trust a physician, you wouldn't be shocked, would you, if they told you that they weren't going to follow that physician's recommendation?
If somebody told me that, I would set the expectation of getting a second opinion.
Okay. But you still would not be shocked that they didn't follow the first opinion.
I mean, anything would be possible. I mean, I've had people follow it and people not follow it, even though they're unhappy.
Well, I didn't say unhappy. If you went to a doctor and you felt the doctor was giving you...
I'm going to object to this point. The question's been asked and answered.
Overruled.
Like it has been answered. If you went to a doctor and the doctor ordered treatment that you felt was not proper or even bad for you, would you follow it?
I would seek a second opinion.
Okay. Before you would follow that course of action, before whatever the first doctor recommended, you get a second opinion first.
I would, if it was a reasonable thing, then I would do it and seek second opinion. If not, then I would seek a second opinion prior to following through with it.
Now there are ways without medication of treating mental health concerns. Is that correct?
I am not a physician, and so I can't speak to that.
Okay. Are you aware that Ms. m0nic is a licensed professional counselor?
I am.
Um, did you talk to her employer?
I did not.
A lot of this is based on apparently accusations of something that happened at work. So why would you not talk to her employer to get better information?
So Kia did not deny that the incident at work had happened, and generally I make an effort not to have a negative impact on people's jobs if I can prevent it. If I can get information from a alternative source without having to affect their jobs, then I'm always much more inclined to do that. I don't like damaging people's livelihoods.
But Kia gave a very different explanation of what happened than what was reported, correct?
Correct, and I didn't press her on that as far as her work goes. And when I spoke to her, that wasn't a significant concern of mine.
Would it surprise you if her supervisor and the director of the
And
facility?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to any kind of hearsay statements from from anybody else involved if they're not going to testify at this hearing.
Sustained.
So you think it's so your testimony is that rather than risk making Miss m0nic uncomfortable at work, you took her child away from her.
So I had the police reports, the statements that the officer obtained from her in the police reports, as well as the
I'm going to
statements from
object
her.
as argumentative to that question.
Overruled. I was trying to listen to his answer. Go ahead and answer, Mr. Anderson.
Objection to hearsay, Judge. He's talking about what police officers.
He's just saying what he based it on. He's not saying what those reports said.
So I based it off of conversations with the responding officer to the car accident, as well as the statements made in the police report, as well as statements made by Kia herself.
Okay, so based on a reaction right after she was in a car accident, correct?
Correct, and the fact that she had to have her son place the child in the father's care.
Okay, but my question is, you're talking about her reaction after she was in a car accident when you talked about those police reports.
Okay.
Correct.
I don't know what your question is. I apologize.
Well, a person who's just been in a car accident might be in any kind of mental state, and their actions or their words would not necessarily indicate a long-term or a continuing mental health problem. Correct?
It could. I understand what you're saying. I wasn't there, so I can't speak to it.
Okay. Especially if those comments are of a religious nature, correct?
So
my question is,
I'm trying to think of how to say this without hearsay. I apologize.
well, then just answer my question. It would not be surprising for somebody to make religious comments when they're in the moment of just having been in an accident, if they're a religious person.
Anything's possible. I can't speak to her. I wasn't there.
Okay. And but you didn't speak to the people that work with her on a daily basis, correct?
Ask and answer.
Okay. Did you speak to anybody at the emergency room?
No.
I'll pass the witness.
All right. Mr. Anderson, is it your understanding she was taken from the car accident to the emergency room or to Oceans?
From the car accident to Oceans.
Okay, somebody just mentioned an emergency room. Oceans doesn't have an emergency room, do they?
No.
Okay.
I wasn't provided paperwork for an emergency for a visit to the emergency room until after the removal, and it was in response to the tardive dyskinesia and the spasming, not in response to the car accident.
Okay, so again, from the car accident, she was taken to Oceans, not to the emergency room.
Correct.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, then, Ms. Gomez, questions?
Hi, Mr. Anderson. So was the car accident when you began your investigation in this case, or did that come sometime before?
The car accident preceded the investigation by, I believe it was 2 days, 3 days.
And prior to the car accident, were there any concerns or any sorts of investigations going on from the department into Ms. Orsanya?
I apologize. Restate the question.
Prior to the car accident, were there any reports made about Kaya's conduct to the department?
No.
Your Honor, I asked that the investigative report filed with this court on December 12th, 2024, that you take judicial notice of that.
All right, so noted.
Your
I
Honor,
have that.
Your Honor, I object to that. It's full of factual evidence, and I don't believe it's proper for court to take judicial notice of facts, only of legal procedural.
Overruled.
Mr. Anderson, prior to the accident, did David or Sonia contact the department with concerns about Kaya Amadi?
Prior to the accident? Mm,
Why don't you take a second to look at your investigative report?
so the incident happened on the car accident occurred on October 30th. And our report was completed on the 27th, or received on the 27th of October.
Did you receive a report that Kaya was expressing that she needed to pray over Journey because the child was under that someone would put a house on her?
Yes.
And did you ask Kaya Amadi about that?
She did not address that. She was not willing to discuss it.
Did she tell you why she believed that there were going on with the child?
Again, when I had tried to talk to her regarding that, it was not something that she was willing to discuss.
Okay, so after the car accident, when you spoke with Mr. Orisanya, did you ask him about those statements concerning?
I did. I discussed that with him. He stated that she picked Journey up earlier than she was supposed to because she felt the need to pray over her. He stated that she informed him that the people that she had been associating with, she discovered that they were affiliated with the practices, and that they had placed a on her child, and that she needed to pray over him or try to pray over her. She also told David that he should be aware of people at his work because they are also engaging in practices.
To clarify, people at David's work are
Correct.
engaging in practices.
Correct.
Okay. And did she make any more ominous statements concerning when she picked the child up that you recall? I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
David stated that when she picked him up, she was sitting in her car. She looked at him with a totally blank expression and said, God told me it's time to tell you, or God told me to tell you that it's time. She wouldn't clarify what. She wouldn't clarify whether or not it was time for her to leave or
Per
what
David's
her way.
per David's statements.
Correct. He said
I'm
that
sorry, guys. Y'all were talking at the same
Yeah.
time. Get your question, Ms. Gomez.
Re-ask the question, Ms. Gomez, because y'all were talking over each other. I didn't hear it either.
Sorry about that. So, per David's statements, she indicated that it's, quote, it's time.
yes. He also stated that he was significantly concerned regarding the way it was said, and as the fact that she has in her home, and that just the way it was said was very disconcerting.
Give me just a second. I have no further questions at this time, Your Honor. I pass the witness.
All right, thank you, Mr. Ingram.
Mr. Anderson, as part of your investigation with regard to the mother having a in her home, was it reported to you at one point she asked the father to come remove that?
Yes, the father reported to me that she requested he take the fire, and then after the fire was given to him, she requested it back.
Do you know if he gave it back to her?
My understanding is that he did not at that time. I don't know if it was returned to her subsequently.
Thank you. Pass the witness.
All right. Anyone have follow-ups for Mr. Anderson?
Just very briefly.
Okay.
And Mr. Anderson, if we can maybe try to help clarify the timeline here, the conversation that that I guess happened between Mr. Orsanya and Miss m0nic, do you know approximately when that occurred?
Which conversation?
The one that Ms. Gomez was asking you about, where she had made the comments about presence around the child.
The October 30th is October 27th is when the statements regarding the child being placed on her.
And looking at that court report, does it say the 27th of 2024?
October 27th, 2024.
Okay, and so do you know when the car accident happened?
October 30th.
So all of those statements would have come before the car accident.
Yes.
Okay, so
yes, correct.
So she's making all of these comments before any sort of trauma could have happened from a car accident, right?
Correct.
And having talked to Miss m0nic and having investigated this case, even if some of the statements were from the trauma of that car accident, would you still expect her to address that trauma and those resulting mental health issues?
Yes.
And at this point, has she shown a willingness to do so?
No.
Has she shown you any proof of getting the so-called second opinion other than actions?
No.
And were those all things that you were trying to give her the opportunity to do when you were initially trying to do a safety plan in this case?
Yes.
I'll pass the witness.
Anyone else have other questions?
No, Judge, but Judge, I'm sorry. Can I have a 30-second break? I locked my wife out of the house.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you for saving my life.
Maybe you'll get to stay in the house tonight.
I was going to say, if it was longer than 30 seconds, please call for help. Thank you, Judge.
All right. Any other questions?
No, Judge.
No one else? Okay. Mr. Anderson, did Miss m0nic discuss the car wreck with you? I've read the report. I've heard about a car wreck, but did she actually discuss how the car wreck occurred with you?
No, she said that she was involved in a car accident, that from the car accident, they basically her and held her against her will at Oceans. That was the version of events that was portrayed to me, but the specifics of it were not.
All right. Thank you. Okay, then, if nobody has further questions for Mr. Anderson, Ms. Wildman, did you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor. I think the department rests.
Okay. All right. Mr. Buck, hang on a minute. I've got to take this phone call real quick. I'll be right back. I apologize. Okay, I apologize for the interruption. I might possibly have another one, and I apologize in advance if I do. So, all right, then, Ms. Gomez, did I ask you if you had any witnesses?
I do not have any witnesses, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Ingram, any witnesses?
No, sir.
All right. So everyone rest and close?
Judge, I'm sorry you did not ask me.
Oh, I didn't. Okay. Mr. Saint, did you have witnesses?
Yes, I'd like to call Miss m0nic.
Okay. Miss m0nic, if you'd unmute, please. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am. If you would raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Mr. Saint?
Thank you. Miss m0nic, you are Journey's mother, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And can you tell the judge just quickly your educational background?
Yes, I'm a licensed professional counselor associate.
Okay. And what kind of degrees do you have to do that?
You have to have a master's.
Okay. And you have a master's degree?
Yes.
Which I assume means you also have a bachelor's degree.
Yes, that's correct.
What mental health history do you have? And by that, I mean, what have you had in the past, like anxiety or things like that?
Anxiety with panic attacks.
Okay. And are these the kinds of things that you would treat as a LPC?
Yes.
So you're familiar with the treatments for these type of issues?
Yes, very familiar.
And in general, do you prefer not to take medication?
Yes, that's correct.
Could you let the judge know briefly why that is?
Yes, because over the years I've taken panic and anxiety medication, and the last time that I was actually on medication was in 2022, and I did see Catherine McNeil. She was my psychiatrist at the time. They don't release information unless it goes to another actual psychiatrist. And the reason why a lot of the times that I would want to get off of it is because of the adverse effects and reactions that I get from the medication. But I haven't been on prescribed medication since 2022.
So you've seen psychiatrists before. What about other kinds of therapists?
I'm sorry?
What about other kinds of therapists?
Yes, I was currently seeing a therapist this year.
Okay. So you are addressing any possible mental health concerns that you may have.
Correct.
Are you a religious person?
Yes, I'm very religious. I believe in God.
Okay. So let's talk about, first of all, let's talk about David. Were y'all married?
We were married.
Okay. So David is your ex-husband, and is there a custody order in place regarding Journey?
Yes, there is.
Okay. And who had the primary custody of Journey?
I did.
And David had a regular visitation schedule?
That's correct.
Have there been any issues with custody between you and David?
Yes, there have been. There's actually a time last year when he made a claim that I was trying to flee with our daughter, and we were in custody for that, and they overruled that because him and his attorney made statements that they had her the majority of the time when they didn't, and it was overruled.
Okay, so it went back to court and they were unsuccessful.
Correct.
Okay. Now, you heard the testimony about what David had told Mr. Anderson about you coming over to the house. Can you tell the judge exactly what happened that day?
Yeah, I was actually at a Bible study that day, and I had concerns about what was going on during the Bible study. And with me being very religious and praying about it, I just felt the need to pick my daughter up early. And I did tell David that God said it's time, like time to pick her up. And I've never been a violent person or anything like that. I don't have a history of violence. So for him to say that I would try to use a gun, I was trying to be protective of my daughter. That's all that I've ever done is try to be protective of my daughter. So the statements that are being made are very concerning. Um, what I got involved in that he's stating, I was just trying to be authentic with him and let him know what was going on, is that Reiki is what I got involved in, and it's supposed to be like a healing, a gentle healing. But after doing my research on it, I realized that there were some issues with that, and I was trying to be protective of my daughter. But to state like I have a mental health issue, it's ridiculous at this point. Like hearing what he says and saying that there's a on my daughter. I never stated anything about there being on my daughter. I did state that I had concerns with the person that I work with and their spouse who works with David, but to say that it was everyone at his job, no.
So you weren't in any state of psychosis or anything like that when you went over
No.
there?
No.
And it sounds like you're very religious. Is that accurate to say?
That's very accurate.
Okay. And so there's been talk about you having do you have a?
No, I actually did give it to David when all the accusations came because I knew there would be concerns and I did not ask for it back.
Okay. So that was just was that just to try to alleviate any concerns people had?
Correct.
Hopefully get them out of your life.
Correct.
By them, I mean CPS.
Correct.
Okay. Now, let's start with the car incident. So you had an accident, is that correct?
That is correct.
And with another car?
Yes.
And so right after the accident, what happened?
I immediately got out of my car. I was very disoriented. I didn't really understand what was going on. I knew there was a gentleman. That's what I seen first. And then after that, it just kind of got hazy. I do remember the police officers coming and putting me in the cop car instead of taking me to the emergency room. For me, that's a huge concern that I was in a car accident and instead of being medically seen, I was taken immediately to Oceans just because I was stating rebuke you because I thought I was dying at that point, very disoriented. So That's been my overall concern from this point, is that I didn't get treated like a human being. It felt like I was just being placed because I made statements repeatedly,
Well,
which was a rebuke.
okay. And so that was a religious thing for you at the time when you thought you could be.
Correct.
Okay. And was it your understanding that that was the reason you were taken to the oceans?
Yes, it is.
And what happened once you got to oceans?
Once I got to Oceans, I was still talking, and because I was still talking, they gave me an injection. So I was definitely very disoriented for the first day. Um, I have a lot of adverse reactions to medication. So being on that particular medication, whatever the shot was, it made me be very delusional at that point. The rest of the days that I was there, I tried to tell them that I did not want the medication that they put me on to increase, and they kept trying to increase that medication. I wrote 3 separate notes and told the nurse practitioner that I did not want to increase the medication that I was on. And instead of listening to me, they tried to add on top of that, tried to increase the from zero point 0.5 milligrams to 2 milligrams when I stated to them that it was making me very sleepy and very tired. And even when I stated that I wasn't a threat to myself and a harm to others, um, after being put on a emergency hold because I didn't feel comfortable talking to the judge at the time, being that medicated, that's whenever they were just keeping me against my will. So I had to get with the patient advocate literally every day until they let me out on the 14th. And the way that I was treated in there was very inhumane. Like, I would not wish that on anyone. I was treated, yeah, very inhumane.
And you said you didn't want to talk at the hearing in front of the judge at that hearing because you were on the medication.
Yeah, I was heavily, and honestly, I just felt like showing that I'm not a harm to myself or others would have been enough. But I didn't realize at the time that I needed to state, that that I'm not a harm to myself. I've never been or anything like that. So to look at all these claims on this, being religious person that I am, making statements that I'm told by someone I'm not even close to. Um, all the family members who made these statements, I'm not in a good relationship with, which, me and his dad, we can co-parent well, but as far as when it comes to Journey, there's always going to be an issue there. He's always going to try to, make it to where if he can get custody of her, he will.
So during all this time, did you ever tell anybody you had thoughts of?
No, and I don't have that in my medical history either. I've always been as proactive as I can about my mental health.
Okay. And what do your religious beliefs tell you about?
Not to kill yourself. That's
Oh,
against my religious beliefs.
okay. And you hold those beliefs very strongly.
Yes.
So you said that you were heavily medicated. How did that affect you, like as far as your talk, your physical reactions, things like that?
It made me not willing to talk, but whenever I first, I guess, had the chemicals in my body, it was making me have, like, that's the reason why I don't like the medications, because they make me feel that way.
How long have you been off those medications now?
I've been off of since December the 1st, but the reason why I'm off it is because I did go to the emergency room because my head was twisting so bad. I was having the tardive dyskinesia, that the doctor took me off of it. It's not something that I requested. He's seen the reaction that I was having from it, and it was making me have as well during the time that I was on it.
What was
So
that medical term you said that you were having?
The Tarkov dyskinesia, I mean, I'm still experiencing it now.
Okay,
After
let
being
me
off.
ask you, sorry, just so the judge will know, he's probably not a doctor. Can you tell him what that is in layman's terms?
Yeah, it's involuntary movements of your body. So it was making my head turn. It was making my body like contort like this. Um, it
So
was very painful.
So you went to the ER and saw a doctor,
Correct.
and that doctor took you off of that drug?
Yes, and they recommended that I follow up with my regular doctor, which I also did.
Did you ever share those documents from the ER with Mr. Anderson?
I did share it with his supervisor. I followed back up with his supervisor to discuss the case, and I did share it with him. And I did state to him whenever he removed my child that the doctor said that I would need to be off of the medication.
Okay. And were you given copies of the records from the hospital?
Yes, which I gave to him and I also gave to you.
Okay. Your Honor, at this time, and I'm not sure how you like to do this here, I've sent exhibits to the court and to the other attorneys, and I want to offer in respondents exhibit 1A and 1B. Do you want me to show them to the client and confirm?
Well, how did you send them to me?
Well, I sent them to Ms. Forbes through email.
Okay. Brittany, can you still there?
I'm having some technical difficulties, but what did you ask me? I'm so sorry.
Mr. Saint said he sent some exhibits. He emailed some exhibits to
Oh,
you.
okay. Let me go pull those.
And if you have them, if you go ahead and just forward them to me.
Your Honor, I can continue while she's doing that if you like.
Sure,
Well,
please.
and Your Honor, the department's going to object to the admission of the exhibits as their business records affidavit, or they don't have any kind of accompanying business records affidavit or anything to authenticate those documents.
Well, I don't know. I haven't seen them yet, so I couldn't.
Well, my
Your
concern
Honor,
would be you can ask questions based off of the documents.
Well, we're not going to do anything until I see the documents, so I'll know what we're
I'm
objecting
sending
to.
them right now.
Okay, thank you. All right, it takes a minute for my program to authenticate them before they'll let me even open them, so we're going to have to wait a minute.
okay. You may continue with my questioning, Judge?
If it doesn't involve the exhibits, you can, certainly.
That's fine. Ms. m0nic, and so the doctor at the ER room took you off that medication.
Yes, that's correct. And I did also tell David Anderson about that. And there's a lot of statements that he made that are definitely untrue about as far as like the safety plan. He only asked me one time.
Okay, Ms. m0nic, you're starting to just testify randomly. You need to just let him ask you questions.
Okay.
Thank you. And actually, Ms. m0nic, that's what I was going to ask you next. So did Mr. Anderson discuss a service plan with you? I'm sorry, a safety plan?
He did one time. He came at around 7 or 8, I think on November the 19th, and stated that TPC had made calls to me, which I never got any of the calls. I said, I've been compliant as I can be with this investigation, and I'm not willing to sign a safety plan when I'm actually being compliant to what you're wanting to do. And I'm willing to go to the TPC appointment tomorrow, which I told him. I told him that, and I did follow through with that, but he's never made any more statements about a safety plan and me needing to, or me denying that.
So a lot of what Mr. Anderson said about their concerns was that you were not taking the medication. Did you feel that that was what you were being required to do to keep them from removing your child?
Correct.
And you said you did follow up at TPC?
Yes, I have an appointment scheduled on the 18th, and I actually made several calls, which I told him about, to different providers, including Catherine McNeil, who I've seen before in the past. And because I haven't seen her in over a year, she stated that I wasn't able to do that. I have another appointment scheduled in January as well that I had scheduled for BSA. But to say that I wasn't trying, I even told him that it cost $2,400 to do a mental health exam without my insurance. I made several calls to different psychiatrists, but it's really hard to get in a early amount of time. So for him to say that I didn't make any attempts, that's very untrue.
Okay. So since leaving Oceans and all of that, have you been able to return to work?
Yes.
How long have you been back at work?
I went back to work on November the 18th.
Okay. And you've been working since then without any incidents?
That is correct.
Okay. No concerns mentioned to you by your employer?
No. When I talked to my director and supervisor,
Object,
they're
Your Honor, to hearsay. She can't
I haven't
testify.
heard it. I haven't heard hearsay yet. She just said she talked to her supervisor. You can go ahead, Miss m0nic.
Yeah, I talked to my supervisor and the director about the whole situation that was taking place and the statements that were made from the police department. And she stated that
Okay,
she didn't.
you can't go there. You can't say what she said. That's hearsay.
Okay.
Sorry, I lost my train of thought. So you're how often do you work?
I work Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 is around the time that I work.
Okay, and you treat patients?
I do groups. So I do mental health therapy with groups of people.
And so you've been able to work all this time and treat your groups and all of that without any issues?
Yes, that's correct.
And I think you said you've been off of medication since December 1st?
Yes, that's correct.
What are you asking the judge to do today?
I'm asking the judge to return my daughter because a lot of the statements that were made were not accurate. They were prejudicial, I feel like detrimental. And I am a safety to my daughter. I am protective of my daughter. There's never been a time that I would harm her. If anything, I have done everything I can to keep her safe. So the claims that were made that there's mental health concerns in regards to how I treat my daughter, that's just not the case. I'm able to take care of my daughter.
Have you ever been accused of harming your daughter or any child?
No, not at all. I have a 19-year-old son as well.
And do you consider yourself a violent person?
No, not at all.
And if the judge were to return Journey to you, but he still wanted you to work some services like get a psychological evaluation and things like that, just to be on the safe side and to make sure everything's taken care of, is that something you would be open to?
Yes.
You think it's harmful for Journey to be away from you?
Yes, I feel like it's been very harmful the way they work the services. They don't even have a date when I'm able to see her next. And the first time that I seen her, I didn't know when I was going to see her. The next time I seen her after that, I didn't know when I was going to see her. And every time I've seen her, my daughter, she misses me and she wants to be with me. So this has been very, very hard, very, very stressful.
And you've been her primary caregiver her entire life?
That's correct.
I'll pass the witness.
All right, thank you. Miss m0nic, if you know, back to this car accident, were there any citations issued to anybody regarding the car accident?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Ms. Wildman, do you have questions for Miss m0nic?
Yes, Your Honor, and I'll try to keep it brief.
Okay.
Miss m0nic, why were you sent home the day of that car accident?
Because whenever, like he said, that part I will admit, I was praying aggressively at work, a time before that. So they just wanted to administer a drug test, and they stated that I would be able to come back to work the next day. There weren't any concerns after doing a drug test
Okay,
and
but they
being
still
cleared.
sent you home, right?
Correct.
So they were concerned about your behavior.
Correct.
And after the accident, you said that you were saying, I believe I revoke you or I revoke you. Was that correct?
I said rebuke you
All right.
during the car accident.
And do you recall what sort of questions you were being asked when you said that?
No, because I was in a car accident. I don't know all the things that I was being asked. No, I don't.
So you don't recall being asked what city you were in and then immediately responding, I rebuke you.
No, I don't recall that.
And do you recall a welfare check that was called in sometime in November?
Yeah, by that time I was on and having side effects from, yeah. Mhm.
And why were the police called out for that welfare check then?
They were called out because my son, he had called.
And what's your son's name?
Josiah Marty Hearn.
And is that the 19-year-old you were talking about previously?
Correct.
So he was concerned about your behavior.
Yeah, on. Mm-hmm.
And when you said that when you went to the emergency room and they had you stop your medication, is that your testimony today?
I'm sorry?
Your testimony today was that you went to the emergency room and they told you to stop that medication, correct?
Yeah, that was on December the 1st.
Did they
Correct.
also tell you to follow up with your provider and see what else to do about that medication?
Yeah, I followed up with my regular doctor after that. Yeah, it states in that, and I did do that.
Okay,
Mhm.
and did you provide that proof to the department?
Yes, I think that I did. I'm not for sure.
Um, what, I mean, let me ask you, you'd agree with me that you didn't make the TPC appointment until after the removal, correct?
No, actually, I made the TPC appointment before the removal, and it's scheduled on the 18th.
Of this month.
That is correct.
Okay. So you didn't make contact with them at all in October or November? I mean, why is it taking 2 months to get to that point?
No, I made contact with them. I think it was November the 20th, the day after when David Anderson confirmed that I went to that appointment.
Okay, so you still haven't addressed the issues that the department or anybody has raised since the accident, correct?
Yes, I've addressed the issues. I told you I went to TPC, made an appointment with them, and I'm scheduled to go on the 18th.
But
There, you can't. I've went to my regular doctor, and it takes time to get into a psychiatrist, so it's not like I'm not trying.
so when you told Mr. Anderson you don't have any mental health concerns, that's not true, right?
What I told him is I don't feel like I have concerns of mental health to be able to be taking medication. Yes, I did tell him that.
But you understand that there's a lot of people who do have concerns about your mental health.
Yeah, but a lot of those people who made statements are my mom, who I don't have a relationship. David, I mean, I've already explained that whole issue with him. Oceans, they did not treat me correct, and I work around mental health professionals every single day, and I go to work every single day. So if there was an issue, an ongoing issue, then it would be shown.
But what about Josiah? You have a good relationship with him?
Yes, I have a good relationship with him. Again, I was on the medication and I've stated that I have a lot of allergic reactions to medications. So there is, in the which I've looked all the side effects, it can cause psychosis, it can cause tardive dyskinesia and all these things.
And that's from your research, but the doctor hasn't necessarily provided you with any documentation of that yet.
No, because I have a scheduled appointment on the 18th that's upcoming
And who is that appointment with?
with TPC.
So you haven't followed up with those side effects with your primary care doctor then?
Yes, I have.
I'll pass the witness, Judge.
All right. Ms. Gomez, any questions?
Yes, Judge. Give me just a second, get some notes down.
Okay. Ms. Amati, you said your appointment with TPC is on December 18th?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm gonna go all the way back up to the beginning. Give me a second. Are you on any medications now, Miss Amati?
No,
In 2022, you were on medications?
that's correct.
What medications were you on? And then you stated that you were seeing a therapist this year, or you are seeing a therapist this year
I am.
currently?
Mm-hmm.
Where is that therapist? Where does that therapist work at? What office, or are they their own independent office?
She has her own independent office.
Who's that therapist?
Leanne Levere.
When's the last time you saw Miss Levere?
The last time I think I seen her was in October. I was going to see her on December 3rd, but that's when my child was removed. So I had to cancel that appointment, but I have an appointment scheduled with her. Let me look it up. Tomorrow.
Just to be sure, Ms. Amati, is it Leanne Lefevre? Is that who your therapist is?
Yes, Leanne Lefevre. I'm just
Okay.
not pronouncing it right, but
Yeah,
yes, I have an appointment with her tomorrow.
I just wanted to be sure that we were talking about the same woman.
Okay.
Okay. And then I want to skip down to the incident involving, I think you, correct me if I'm wrong, it's called Bracky?
Reiki.
Reiki. I'm so sorry.
Mhm.
Can you describe for me? I think we glossed over it. What is that?
Reiki is supposed to be energy healing, is what it's called. Energy work.
You alluded to, well, actually, let me take a step back. Sorry about that. What does it involve?
It involves like putting your hands over people, and it's supposed to be like healing is what it essentially is supposed to be. And that there is a spiritual energy that's used, an energy.
Okay. And you indicated that there might, so you looked into it a little bit more and that there may have been issues with that. Is that correct?
Correct.
Can you talk to me a little bit about what your concerns were with the issues?
Because whenever I went into it, they were talking about their spirit guides, and when I looked up spirit guides, then it stated that those spirit guides, they're like, and that's whenever it kind of raised red flags for me.
So had you utilized Reiki at all in your life on anybody?
Are you talking about before Reiki or whenever I was doing it?
When you were doing it, how have you engaged with it yourself? We'll start there.
Okay. So somebody that I know from work introduced it to me, and I went and I got the energy work that she stated, felt something whenever it was happening. So I was interested in becoming like a Reiki person. And whenever that happened, that's when I was like, okay, where's this energy that's coming from? that they use. And I did more research, and that's when I realized that it didn't fall along with my beliefs in Christianity.
Because of the spirit guides. The
Correct.
the issues kind of okay.
Correct.
Okay. Had your child at any point been introduced to Reiki at all?
No, not at all. They asked about it and I immediately declined.
Okay. Let me skip down. So I want to talk to you a little bit about your relationship with David or Sonia. It's true that you guys were previously married, right?
Correct.
And there's been some custody issues in the courtroom since that divorce.
Correct.
But as of this time, do you guys co-parent well?
Yeah, pretty decent. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So to the extent that you asked him to come get your kind of when all of this got kicked off, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And it's your
Are
testimony.
you saying whenever I asked him to get the guns when all of this kicked off? When all of what kicked off?
The investigation. So when you were aware that when did you ask him to come get?
After the investigation, or after once it started up, and I had gotten out of Oceans because I knew there would be concerns.
Okay. And it's your testimony that you did not ask him, change your mind that day about it.
No, I didn't change my mind about it. I gave it to him. He said, "Are you sure you want me to take this?" And I said, "Yeah, go ahead."
Okay. And sorry, looking through my notes. Give me a second. I want to talk to you a little bit about the accident. So I'm just going to ask you in a broad sense, what occurred? What happened before the actual accident?
What do you mean? Like when?
So explain what happened during the car accident that with your car and the other car.
I've been trying to get the actual video from it, but from my perception, what happened was I was headed south. The person who hit me was headed north, and they hit my front end, and it made my car turn southways. Or northways, I mean. So the same direction as them.
Prior to that, were you having any sort of feeling any anxious at all?
Yeah, I mean, that was the day that I came from work. So yeah, I would feel like I would be a little bit anxious from all of that. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And at work, it was that you were, quote, praying aggressively.
Okay,
Correct?
that wasn't the same day. That was the day before. They just did a drug test that day and sent me home.
On the day that you did with the conduct that you're describing as praying aggressively, when did that occur specifically?
I think it was the day before, or sometime in that line. I don't know the exact date, but it was within that time frame. I don't want to say an exact date and be off, you know.
No, yeah, no, for sure. Okay, I'm getting your timeline. So did you 5:26 p.m. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. The praying aggressively, what does that mean to you? What does that mean?
So there's what's called tongues, speaking in tongues in the church.
Mhm.
That's normal. And that's what I was doing at work. So yeah.
Where were you? What was your environment while you were speaking in tongues?
It was in the open. So that's what made it be concerning, is that it was in open space.
Oh, okay. And everybody's kind of just looking at you at that point, kind of wondering what's going on.
Right.
I see. Well, what were you doing it loudly, or was it kind of just in a normal speaking voice, or?
I would say that it was in a normal speaking voice, but it was around people, so yeah,
And they're not used to it, so right.
correct.
Did anyone ask you to kind of approach you and say, hey, can you cut that out, or what did?
No,
No.
no.
When? Well, why did you start speaking in tongues in the open at work?
I just felt led to do it because, like I said, I'm a religious person. I just felt led to do it. But I realized that it was a mistake, after doing it. Everybody makes mistakes.
100%. Had you ever done that before? Had you ever spoken in tongues before at work in the open?
No.
No. What? You say you just felt the need to do it. Were there
Mhm.
any sort of stressors that may have caused that?
Yeah, I feel like everything leading up to with being into Reiki and the whole finding out about the stuff and then the church that I was involved in, I just felt the need to just pray more. So yeah, at that point, yeah, I feel like it was a stressor.
Give me just a second. So sorry, getting through my notes again. So again, to take just a half a step back, you indicated that you stated after the accident when you were approached that you rebuke, correct?
I was saying rebuke you, rebuke you.
Rebuke you, rebuke you, and you remember repeatedly saying that,
I do.
but you don't remember the questions that were being asked of you?
No, because I was disoriented. Like anybody in an accident, in a car accident, is not necessarily going to know how it's going to affect them at that
Objection,
point.
Judge, calls for speculation.
Well, I've heard this asked and answered about 3 or 4 times now. So
Okay.
let's move on to something new.
Yes, sir. Give me just a second. I pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Ingram.
No questions.
All right, then, Mr. Sain, any follow-ups?
Very briefly, Judge. Ms. m0nic, just to make sure everybody's aware of this, to be clear, Reiki is an Eastern Eastern practice dating back thousands of years. It's not some new fad, correct?
Correct.
Pass the witness.
Oh, I think we're on the screen.
I'm sorry, is that all you had, Mr. Sain?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Judge. Yes, I passed the witness.
Okay, anyone else have other questions for Ms. m0nic? All right, then, Mr. Saint, do you have any other witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
All right, Ms. Gomez, any witnesses?
I'm going to call David or Sonia.
Okay.
And we'll try to be brief, Your Honor.
All right. Sir, if you'd raise your right hand, you swear the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. I don't know if you can, I don't know how big a table you're sitting at. If you could get maybe a little closer to the microphone, I was having a little trouble hearing you. Okay. All right, then, Ms. Gomez.
Mr. Orsanya, do you recall the day that your ex-wife called you to retrieve her?
I do.
Can you describe that event for us as you remember?
So earlier that day, she had told me that she was going to give me something whenever I picked Journey up. And I said, okay. She never told me exactly what it was. And then later that night, around the time that I dropped my daughter off, she comes downstairs and she has a bag. And she says, here, and I look into the bag. I couldn't quite see because it was at night. So I asked her, what is it? And she told me it was the, after she told me it was the, I said, okay. I told her that I wasn't too comfortable to just take it out of the bag so that I didn't know who all might be around. Somebody might speculate things are going on. So she was going to walk to my car to give it to me in the car. And then I told her, well, I'll just go ahead and take it. So I took the, and as I'm leaving, I get a phone call from Miss m0nic, and she says, never mind. And I asked her what she was referring to. She said, she told me that I could bring it back. And I said, well, it's a little odd to me that you want it back after I just gave it to you. Are you sure? Because I did ask her if she was sure in the first place if she wanted to give it to me. And she said yes, because it was time. But then after I questioned her about it, about wanting it back, she said, never mind, just keep it. And I said, okay, just like that. And then that was the end of our phone call.
And leading up to the car crash, did you have concerns about Miss m0nic's mental health?
To a degree, yes, I did. It was more whenever she was actually admitted into Oceans that my concerns became more inflated. And then 2 days afterwards, when her son had brought Journey to me, that was when that made it a bigger concern.
Why?
Well, because he seemed to be in a state of panic when he brought her to me, and he said that she was throwing things around the house and saying, I rebuke you.
Sustained.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Hearsay objection, what I sustained.
Okay, yeah, no, so can't talk about what he said,
Okay.
but okay, keep going.
So after I could see the panic in his face, and then I took my daughter, and I was expecting maybe to hear something back that day, and I didn't hear anything back that day, and I ended up keeping her the entire night. And it was the next day that she told me she was ready to pick Journey up.
Okay. And since the child has been with you, has her behavior been normal?
Yeah.
She crying a lot?
Mm-mm.
She seem happy?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other ongoing issues with the baby?
Mm-mm.
Any other concerns that you'd like to discuss right now?
None that I can think of at the moment.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Right, thank you. Sir, before all this started, what was your normal routine as far as your visitation? I mean, I could say standard visitation if you know what that means, but
Sure.
how? Go ahead.
So as Miss m0nic had said, we co-parent pretty good. I would have your standard weekends as well as Thursdays. And then if she needed to go to run an errand or go do something, she would let me know and I would keep Journey.
Okay, so I take it Journey would stay with you overnight every other week, our first, third, and fifth weekends?
So it was, my agreement is a little different. So it was second and fourth and alternating fifth weekend.
Okay, but on those weekends, she would stay with you overnight, Friday, I
Yes,
guess
sir.
Friday till Sunday evening?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, I mean, Journey being in your home overnight's nothing new.
No.
Okay. All right. Ms. Wildman, questions for this witness?
No, Your Honor, I think Ms. Gowan's covered everything.
All right. Let's see. Mr. Saint, questions?
Briefly, Judge.
Okay.
Sir, is Journey bonded with her mother?
Is she bonded with her mother? Can you elaborate?
Is she bonded with her mother? Is she close with her mother?
I'd say so, yes.
Okay. Do you think it's good for her to be away from her mother and not being able to see her?
I wouldn't say that, no.
Ask the witness.
All right, Mr. Ingram.
Sorry, I couldn't get unmuted for some reason. I have no questions.
All right. All right. Anything else of Mr. Osan? All right, then, Ms. Gomez, any other witnesses?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right. All right. Is everyone rest and close?
Yes, Judge.
Sure.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. All right, Mr. Ingram, recommendations.
Recommend that the department be named as joint managing conservator with the father. Placement to remain with the father at this time. We need to get visits set up with the mom immediately.
Okay. Give me just a second here. Okay, then, based on what I've heard, then I'm going to name the department and Mr. Orsanya temporary joint managing conservators. I'll name Ms. m0nic as temporary possessory conservator. I'll continue Journey's current placement. We'll have our next hearing, a status hearing, on January 27th.
Your Honor, if I may, we have a really busy docket date already. Is there any other dates that would fall within our timeline that we could switch that to?
I actually wanted to move it up anyway, so we'll have the status hearing on January 13th, 2025. Parties and attorneys can go on the court's online docket a day or two in advance of January 13th to see exactly what time we'll have the hearing. And Ms. m0nic, if you'd unmute, please.
Yes.
I know you gave some testimony about the cost of, I don't know if it was a psychological or psychiatric evaluation. I think you said $2,400. I just wanted just to advise you that if that's what's going to be done, you don't necessarily have to pay for it. The department can pay for it. So I just wanted you to know you don't have to spend your money on it. If it's something that the court agrees that needs to be done, then it can be done at the department's expense, not at yours. So
Yeah, I would like to go ahead and get that done.
Yeah, well, we can do that. You want to get that done before we come back to court?
Correct.
Are you okay with the department paying for it? I guess what I'm getting at, if you want to have it done by someone that they don't contract with, I can't help you there. But if somebody, a psychiatrist they contract with, if you're okay with that, we should let them pay for it, not you. So just talk to your lawyer about it. If you're not comfortable with who they're sending you to, maybe y'all can work that out. I don't know who all they contract with, but they can only pay for it if they contract with that psychiatrist. So y'all talk about it. I'd be very, excuse me.
I'm sorry.
I'd be very pleased to have that done before we come back. But if we can't, we can't. So y'all visit about it and see what you can work out. Okay. This was our last hearing, obviously, so we will stand in recess. Everybody have a good week and have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Judge. You too.
Thank y'all.
You know what struck me is listening to Mom talk. She sounded so very normal, so very together, and, so very normal. But I think the concern, well, there's nothing wrong with being religious first. There's nothing wrong with that. But the concern is the thoughts and the worries that she has about her daughter and the forces working on her daughter. And I think the concern is those thoughts turning into actions that could be very bad. Very, very bad. Especially when she goes to the dad and she says, it's time. What does that lead you to believe? What does that make you think? And yes, she said it was about giving back or giving him the pew that she had, but maybe not. Maybe that had to do with something else. I don't know. you know. So I'm a little torn. I'm torn because I can understand her religion. I'm a Christian. I can understand that. But she's not acting very rational about it. Speaking in tongues is private. It's something that, you know, I've never done it, but it is something that people do, but it's a private thing. It's not something you do in public or do around others. It's your own communication. So anyway, but I think their concern is the child and her acting on these thoughts that may or may not be good. So anyway, it's a good thing they're going to take it a little slower. They're going to take a step back. And, you know, she'll have the psychological assessment and, you know, hopefully she'll be able to reunite with her daughter and, you know, co-parent again. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.